Good evening and welcome to the March 10th, 2014 Hillsborough Township Board of Education meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. The Hillsborough Township Board of Education will be conducting its organization regular meeting at 7:30 on, In accordance with the State Sunshine Law of New Jersey, adequate notice of this meeting of the Hillsborough Township Board of Education was provided on March 6, 2014 to the Hillsborough Beacon and Courier News. May I have a roll call, please, Mr. Mahmood?
Surely. Ms. Bogoshevsky?
Here.
Ms. Santafonte?
Here.
Mr. Dutta?
Here.
Mr. Gillette?
Here.
Mrs. Haas? Mrs. Haley?
Here.
Mr. Pulsifer?
Here.
Mrs. Swassant? And Mr. Kintz?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, we're official now. Let us rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we have correspondence is in the agenda, and I'd like to hand it off to Dr. Schiff with the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Each month we try to showcase the wonderful things that are going on within our district. We call it Spotlight on Students. And tonight we have musicians from Aughton Road Intermediate School here to perform for us. I know that they performed just before the meeting. They did a wonderful job. Here to introduce the ensemble is Aughton Road's principal, Mr. Christopher Carey. Mr. Carey.
Thank you, Dr. Schiff. Good evening, everyone. Yes, I am certainly proud to introduce our honors band and the conductor, Miss Nancy Cicciarelli. I'll introduce her in just a moment. Hopefully, those of you that got here a little earlier today were able to enjoy the 3 songs. Maybe you got a program as well, and it, of course, details all the students in the honors band. Before I pass it over to Mrs. Cicciarelli and then ultimately the students play, I would like to send a few acknowledgments out. To our parents who made it out this evening, of course, bringing your child with you. And yes, of course. And as a part of this spotlight on students, I also wanted to mention that the Honors Band is it's a band above and beyond the 6th grade bands. These students are selected because of their achievement as a musician, and they started their rehearsals in early December, and they come every Friday morning at around 8 o'clock, and they practice for about an hour. So again, thank you, parents, for taking part in participating in that. Also, I'd like to thank the students, of course, on stage right now, being ready to perform. We have 56 students prepared and ready to go. I know each of you have wonderful music ability, but I can guarantee you it's probably your hard work, and that's the reason why that sets you apart. So continue always to work hard, and I commend each of you for being in the Honors Band. Last but not least, I also want to acknowledge the teachers in our instrumental music program. We have 6 teachers who work with over 600 students. It's about 56% of our student population participate in instrumental music, and they coordinate 15 instrumental groups. And I wanted to acknowledge them briefly. We have Mr. Mark Angelone, Miss Nancy Petroselli, Miss Gabrielle Chaya, Miss Carrie Lansbury, Miss Beth Nichols, who is the partner to Miss Cicciarelli in the 6th grade band conductors, and of course, Mrs. Cicciarelli. She's right behind me. So I want to send just say a special thank you to Nancy. When we talked about this and I wanted to put a spotlight on our instrumental program, Nancy took it with enthusiasm. She ran with it, and you can see right out front there's a wonderful display that you can see the pictures of all the different bands that we have at Aughton Road. She put together the program that I hope all of you have. If you don't have one, you can certainly get one on the way out. And again, just her enthusiasm through this entire process has made it so easy for me, and I know the students are going to have a wonderful experience as well. I'm going to hand it over to Nancy for a second. She's going to talk a little about what it's like to be a teacher at Aughton Road Instrumental Program. She'll share a little bit more information.
I'd like to thank Dr. Schiff, the Board of Ed, and ARIS administration for the amazing opportunity to perform this evening. Special thanks to ARIS Vice Principals Christine Smith and Mike Picatoli for the day-to-day support they provide to all ARIS students and teachers. I would like to especially thank Principal Chris Carey for the opportunity to celebrate what the arts bring into the lives of ARIS students. As a former industrial arts teacher, Chris has the knack for creating an aesthetically beautiful educational environment. He is a supportive and appreciative presence in arts education here at ARIS. Thank you also to Hillsborough's Fine Arts Supervisor, Olga Zaretsky, for the support and guidance that she provides to the district's music and arts staff. Her unwavering commitment to the arts in this district is beneficial to all, but most importantly, our students. As an educator, teaching this level of musicians is truly exciting. While Hillsborough students have an enriched musical experience in the lower grades, ARIS is the first opportunity students have to play an instrument in an ensemble. Instrumental music ensemble performance is a passion that the ARIS music staff has the opportunity to ignite within our students every year. This particular group has been preparing diligently for this evening's performance. While rehearsals have had great focus, we are also having a lot of fun. We hope that you enjoy tonight's feature piece, The Lord of the Dance.
So as Mrs. Ciccarelli's making her way up, we'll give her a few moments to get up there. As she said, the feature song that they're going to play is Lord of the Dance, and some of you may recall that's from the stage show Riverdance. Popular music, energetic and dramatic Irish and Celtic music, so they're going to play one song from that. And lastly, I also want to mention that the song will have a flute duo. It will begin with a flute duo from two students, Savannah Brezik and Mishti Das, and there are two fermatas in this particular song, so please hold your applause till the end. And last but not least, I will mention that the Honors Band has 3 more performances that they will be putting on for the students and parents before the year ends. The first one will be for our 5th grade students so they can see something to aspire to. That will take place in May. And May 21st at 7 p.m. here at Alton Road, there will be a concert with the Honors Band and the Alton Road Jazz Band will be performing. That's a wonderful opportunity for you to come out and hear them again. And last but not least, to give our 4th grade families a little idea of what they'll be encountering at Alton Road, they will be performing for the 4th grade parents and guardians in June when they have their orientation session. I've talked enough. Without any further delay, I'm going to hand it over to Mrs. Ciccarelli.
So impressive. Let's give him one more big round of applause. Wonderful job. Mr. President, I ask for a brief recess.
Yep, we'll take about a 10-minute recess, so everybody can get their kids home, and then we can get set up for the rest of the meeting. Okay, and we're back from recess. So we're going to continue on with the superintendent's report. I just want to set the stage a little bit. Dr. Schiff will present on the tentative 2014-15 budget. Then we will have a discussion among the board. I'm going to actually limit it to clarification questions. We'll have discussion about the budget in the action agenda at the appropriate place. And then we'll have committee reports and then comments from the board or comments from the public, which would include new business and then public input on the 14-15 budget. And then we'll continue on with the action agenda. So Dr. Schiff, if you can present on the tentative budget.
My pleasure. Thank you, Mr. Kins. This evening, I'll be presenting the 2014-2015 tentative budget. I'd like to start by reviewing the budget calendar and how we've come to this evening. We began our budget development process in October of the prior year, where all of our budget managers, which include our department heads as well as principals and directors, submit their tentative budgets to myself and our business administrator, Mr. Mahmood. At that time, we review each budget by each line. We make decisions about what to continue funding, what to reduce, what to add at that point. And then in January, I present the budget request to each of the 3 board committees that are responsible for reviewing each of their individual areas. We have 3 standing committees that have budgetary responsibilities. Those are the Education Committee, Operations and Human Resources. Education reviews everything that is educationally oriented, that is involved in the instructional and the curriculum programs. Operations are all things transportation related, buildings and grounds related, financially related. Human resource is all of our personnel management. On February 27th this year, all schools in New Jersey received their state aid figures, and at that point we have a relatively good understanding of what the revenue side of the budget is going to look like. On March 1st, which was a Saturday, the Operations Committee met for about half a day to review the superintendent's budget and to make decisions about what to present to the full board for review as the tentative budget. March 10th, tonight, the board will act on approving a tentative budget. The tentative budget is just that. It can change over time. Our next step after tonight is that for the next 6 weeks or so, the board will work in committees to make any additions, changes, subtractions to the tentative budget in an effort to come to this, back to this dais on April 28th to have a full public hearing on the finalized 2014-2015 budget, and then the board will vote on that budget that evening. What were our funding priorities in this budget? We are expanding our strategic planning priorities. Currently, we have Chinese at the elementary level as well as at ARIS. We are going to continue the program into the middle school and expand the program from Chinese 1 to Chinese 2 at the high school. I am recommending that we complete our one-to-one initiative. Our one-to-one initiative is the opportunity for all students in grades 5 through 12 to have a Chromebook in order to organize their work and to enrich and enhance the instructional environment. This is the fourth year of a 4-year phase-in plan. We are also preparing for PARC implementation. PARC stands for the Partnership of Assessment for the Readiness of College and Careers. PARC is the new national assessment that is done online that determines how well students across the country are mastering the Common Core state standards. This is a new assessment. Again, it's taken online, and the Chromebooks would be the medium by which the students would take this assessment. Also, another part, of our strategic plan help to improve our facilities. while not increasing taxes in the community. We're doing that through the implementation of the Energy Savings Improvement Plan, which allows for capital projects to be completed and that the energy savings generated by those projects goes to pay for those projects. So in the next few weeks, the board will be receiving quite a comprehensive presentation working with Honeywell on what we anticipate will be funded through the ESIP projects. I wanted to talk a few minutes about the tax levy cap. The tax levy cap is actually in three different areas, three different components. The first area that constitutes the tax levy cap is a 2% increase off of the current year general fund tax levy. 2% of the current year's tax levy is about $1.6 million. That's one part of the tax levy cap. A second part is what's called bank cap, that in prior years, if we don't go up to the 2% and we don't accept any waivers, which I'll talk about in a moment, those monies are left in the bank that allows the board to raise the levy by that much in future years if it needs to do so without going out to the community for a vote. The third part are called waivers. There are a few different waivers that are available. We have a health care waiver of $482,000 and $482,491, excuse me. That health care waiver is allowed due to the fact that health care increases are happening well beyond the 2% part of the tax levy cap. The tentative budget maintains $1.3 million available in bank cap for the board to use in the future if it needs to do so. The estimated school tax rate, the levy is increasing by approximately 4.32%. That compares the current year's tax levy, about $82 million, to what we're looking at a levy next year at $85.6 million. That creates a property tax rate of 1.536, which is the multiplier that you would use to multiply times $100 of assessed property value. Last year's school tax rate was 1.467, and the proposed tax rate is 1.563, as I said, an increase of 0.069. So what is the effect on the average homeowner in the community? The average home is assessed at $363,900 this year, would see an increase of $252 for the year. One of the reasons for this increase is that our ratables, which are the taxable properties in the community, fell by approximately 2%. That's actually close to $120 million less in ratables than what we had in the prior year. This raises the tax rate by approximately 0.33. This may be difficult to see, but what this shows is that depending upon what your home is assessed at, what the increase in annual tax for those schools would be. You see highlighted in yellow the average home value, more if your home is assessed at a greater rate, less if it's assessed at a lesser rate. Hillsborough Township Public Schools is actually two townships or a borough as well as a township that fund the school taxes in our community. Millstone Borough has a separate school tax rate. The levy there is also increasing. It's increasing by 5.36%. We calculate their increase based upon an algorithm that is given to us by the State Department of Education. Their property tax levy is going up from about $800,000 to $850,000. The rate is increasing from 1.525 in the 2013 tax year to a proposed tax rate in 2014 of 1.574, an increase of 0.051. For the average homeowner in Millstone, they would see an increase of $165 for the year. Millstone's ratables also decrease. They decrease by less than 1%. This is a similar chart to Hillsborough. Again, you can see highlighted the average homeowner in Millstone Borough. Of course, less taxation if the assessment is lower and more if the assessment value is higher. Some significant cost drivers that we have within our budget. Healthcare is by far the largest. Our healthcare costs, we know what half of our year is because our healthcare is budgeted on, or the healthcare increase is known for a calendar year, but we go to school over a fiscal year, so we have to predict what our healthcare would be the second half of the 2014-2015 school year. We are predicting that to be an increase of approximately 15%. That's certainly significant. We hope that those healthcare cost increases will come down, but that is the largest cost driver in our budget. We're also funding our strategic plan. The one-to-one initiative has a 4-year lease that's a part of it. That will be a standing expenditure within the budget, plus additional staff members. We also had unanticipated special education staff positions that were needed due to increases in enrollment and program design. This is actually here at our school, and we'll be hiring 5 new special education teachers. As I said before, we're preparing for the park assessment. If the district chooses not to move forward with the one-to-one technology initiative, we will still need to be purchasing computers to administer the park, which will remain on carts and used primarily for, I would say, weeks at a time in order to administer the park solely, and will not be part of the one-to-one initiative. Our energy costs are increasing by 28% over what is budgeted in current year budget. That includes a significant increase in electric as well as gas. We also have a fund balance, which is our surpluses that are left over at the end of the year. We typically spend about 97% of our budget. We have about 3% or so that's left over at the end of the year. Last year, we spent about 98% of our budget, dipping into that surplus by approximately $1 million or so. Now, this year, our fund balance looks like we will have a surplus above that fund balance of approximately $500,000. However, that decrease in fund balance last year is booked as a revenue in next year's budget. So how are we managing costs moving forward? We have made significant progress in trying to control healthcare. We do that both by changing healthcare providers when they are equal to or better than the current plan, and we have worked with our associations through the collective bargaining process to find more contributions and other ways to control the costs of health care. All of our employees are contributing much more and will continue to contribute more to their health care as time goes on. We use shared services and cooperative purchasing also to maintain costs in our district. This year, as an example, we've worked collaboratively with our Township committee, and the Township is actually linking into our phone system so they don't have to have a separate phone system, at a savings to the taxpayers of over $27,000 a year. We're very proud of our revenue generating that we have within our district. We have a program called the Children at Play program. This allows our kids that are in kindergarten for half a day for parents to pay tuition for them to remain in kindergarten for the second half a day. This is the 3rd year that we have done it, and we've generated close to $500,000 in revenue. This current year, we changed the starting time for the middle school and rebid all of our transportation contracts. As a result of that small change, we have saved over $1 million this past year in transportation efficiencies. We also started this year with a new program to help address the needs of children that have some emotional challenges. We have contracted with a group called Effective School Solutions, which provides therapy and mental health support for children who would have gone out of district to be in a more therapeutic environment. This has been very successful this year. We have 7 students who actually returned from an out-of-district placement and about 6 students who didn't have to go out to an out-of-district placement. They remained in our district in their local schools and had their needs satisfied through these additional interventions. savings to our community was close to $250,000 with that program. We reduced our capital outlay in next year's budget, and the reason that we did that is we're going to be doing a lot of capital projects, including 4 roofing projects, 3 this summer, 1 next summer, using ROD grants. ROD stands for Regular Operating District. These are monies that are set aside by the state to pay for 40% of those roofing projects. Those are not dollars that have to be raised in the levy. These are dollars that are paid for by the state. And as I said before, we're also moving forward with the ESIP project, the Energy Savings Improvement Plan, which will pay for itself through the energy savings that those construction projects generate. However, in order to maintain $1.3 million in the bank cap, we had to make some difficult decisions. One was we scaled back what we were going to do in our one-to-one initiative. We're going to be hiring less staff than what we hoped to do initially, and we are changing the funding structure of how we're going to finance it. The funding structure is 4 years. Initially, it was 4 equal payments, but in years 3 and 4 of the lease, another lease is completed. So we took out a lease in order to put those projection units in all of the classrooms about 3 years ago. Those leases are coming due, which releases monies that would be available within the budget to fund larger payments in year 3 and 4 of the one-to-one initiative. Those changes will save about $350,000, but that wouldn't be enough to get to the $1.3 million. The board also needs to consider the possibility of privatizing nighttime cleaning staff. Currently, our staff that serves the district from 3 to 11, that cleans our classrooms, our hallways, that also helps to set up for events like tonight, as well as break down events like the one we're in tonight. Those positions, 35 of them, would be privatized. The savings from privatization comes from reduced wages as well as reduced health care benefits. What is being contemplated is a reduction from their hourly rate where they are to $12 an hour for cleaning, and if they have a Black Seal license, which allows them to service our boilers, it would be $14 an hour. Currently, they're making around $16 to $18 or so an hour, some a little bit more, some a little bit less. And the health care would be what would be allowable under the Affordable Care Act for those individuals. The savings of that is approximately $700,000. We would also need to consider privatization of our day-to-day as well as long-term substitutes. The day-to-day substitutes would not have a change in compensation. However, our long-term substitutes who are currently on contract would come off contract, would be paid a per diem rate of $130 a day, plus have health care consistent with the Affordable Care Act. That's very different than the health care that they currently have, as well as the daily wage that our long-term subs have as well. That would be a savings of approximately $250,000. Add that up, and that's where we would save $1.3 million in the banked cap. I want to just take a moment and talk about the relationship between the spending and how it affects the average homeowner. For every $100,000 change in spending, the average homeowner in Hillsborough Township, that change would be $3 for the year. So $1 million change would be a $30 change for the year for the average homeowner. This is another reason why taxes are going up. That's because state funding is not going up at a pace that is consistent with 2% or even close to how healthcare costs are going up. You can see by the chart behind me that the last few years are relatively flat. We received a 0.6% increase this year. That's approximately $140,000 on a $25 million state aid check. The year before, we received a fraction of a percent. For all intents and purposes, it was flat. And it has not come back to the state funding levels that we saw in 2009, where it was over $26 million. But Hillsborough Township Public Schools has had a long history of controlling costs, and when we compare our cost per pupil to the rest of the districts throughout the state, as well as similar districts, we continue to spend less. The chart behind me illustrates the total budgetary cost per pupil that is on the State Department of Education website for the most recent data that we have, which is the 2012-2013 budget. This is from the Taxpayer's Guide to Education Spending 2013, that the state spending as well as the similar district spending, and we're in a category with K through 12 districts that have 3,500 pupils or more, that Hillsborough spends approximately $1,100 less than the average school district in the state, as well as the average school district in our comparative group. When we look at total administrative costs per pupil, Hillsborough Township also spends less per pupil than the average district in the state of New Jersey, as well as our comparative group. Over, was that about $220 less per pupil that is spent on administrative costs. So what does the entire budget look like? The budget is broken up into three different areas: the general fund, grants and entitlements, debt service. And what is our total? The general fund is going up 2.79%. Grants and entitlements are decreasing about 17%, and that is what is directed from the Department of the U.S. Department of Ed asks us to budget about 85% of what our prior year's budget was. And our debt service is going down slightly, down 2.62%. Our total budget, the total tentative budget that you'll be voting on tonight, is an increase of 2.27% from last year's revised budgets. Just to highlight some key points, this tentative budget doesn't only maintain current programs, but it does expand on our strategic planning priorities. We are maintaining $1.3 million in the bank cap. The board will need to consider, in order to do that, privatization of nighttime cleaning staff as well as substitutes. And the annual tax rate for the average homeowner in Hillsborough will see an increase of $252 for the year, in part due to a rateable decrease of approximately 2%. I thank the audience and the board, and I'm available for your questions.
Okay, first we're going to have questions from board members, and then, again, discussion about the budget will, I know we're going to have vigorous discussion, debate, robust discussion. That'll occur during the action agenda. So if we can limit this to clarification questions, please.
I just had, Dr. Schiff, I just had a clarifying question about your slide about the $3 per 100,000, $30 for $1 million. How do you get to $252 increase out of that? We're not increasing the tax levy $8 million. I don't think it's $3 per 100,000. So that's just a clarifying question. Sure.
We did this through the calculator that we have in order to determine the tax levy. What we did was we took a look at what would be the effect on reducing the budget by $100,000, and we took a look at what the average impact was for the average homeowner, and it was $3. We did check and double check that.
Okay, double check, because it doesn't seem correct.
I have a couple questions. One, for the full implementation of the one-to-one initiative, what would be the total cost for the lease that would be spread out over 4 years?
We can get to you the exact figures, but to kind of ballpark it, it'd be about $600,000 year one, $600 year two, maybe $750 year 3 and 4 approximately. But we can get you the exact figures.
So 2.7 million is what I added up real quick. 1,200 and 1,500, okay. And then additional staff at roughly?
4 people, so about, I would say about 280,000, including benefits.
Okay. Okay, and that would be per year. Okay. And then also for clarification, and just so you can check my math, is I did I looked at Hillsborough and I also looked at Millstone, looking at the differences in the tax rate. So the 1.536 as is proposed versus the 1.457 as it exists, that represents a 5.4% increase in the tax rate, which would be another way that you can look at it in terms of what the individual impact would be for each of the property owners. And then doing the same for Millstone, it was a 3.2%. Okay. I think those were the main questions I had from a clarification perspective. Okay. Any other questions? Chris?
One
Mr.
question,
Pulsifer.
just, thank you. Just with respect to the just the change in ratables, if we look at that, if we were to try to stay tax neutral with respect to that, what kind of a loss does that amount to? Is that 2% of is it the same 1.6 million or so that is our 2% cap? So we're effectively losing that 1.6 million along with, in terms of impact on the tax base, it's a 1.6 million loss that we have to make up just to stay neutral, plus with all the other cost increases separate from the rateable change, that's the number that people can look at. They're trying to put a number on the 2%. So is that 1.6 a fair estimate of what that, sort of the effective loss of the ratables?
I think so. What's a
Or is it,
ratables? The ratables loss was about 120 million.
or just think in terms of
Yeah.
budget hit, I mean, if our budget ratables went down, the ratables went down 2%, and we stayed the tax rate the same, then that should mean our levy went down 2%.
Theoretically.
Fairly.
I
I
think
mean, it's not, I'm not saying exactly, but in terms of giving the public an idea of what the budgetary impact of that 2% rateable cut is that 1.6 million number, give or take, that we, in terms of when people look at the impact and what's the impact on taxes, we effectively lost that money. Against break even, we lost that money, so we'd have to do something with that.
So I guess another way to look at it, or another way to phrase it, and you guys can correct me, that if you kept the school budget flat, the tax levy flat, in order to maintain that same tax levy, taxes would have to go up 2.2% just to stay even. So of the 5.4%, 2.2 represents the impact from the tax ratables decreasing.
I just want to put a real number, well, not real, but, because a lot of times we look at all these different percentages measured from where, it gets confusing sometimes. So to put a solid number on, or a dollar amount on it for people to understand.
Yeah, I was going to say
Mr.
the
Gillette.
same thing a different way, that we lost, the ratables went down by 120 million, so whatever the tax rate is, just multiply that by 120 million, and that's how much money that we can't get, because there's $120 million that we would try to use this last year's rate on, and it's just not there. $120 million of property went away.
Mrs. Haas.
I'd like to know if anybody's investigated how our ratables have gone down by 2% when all I see around town is building, building, and building. How do ratables go down 2%?
We did ask the tax assessor that very question, and she indicated to us that the majority, not the overwhelming balance, were due to the appeals.
$120 million worth of tax appeals?
That's what I heard.
That's pretty good. We just had a reval 2 years ago that cost this town over $1 million. I guess their work wasn't that good. How does that go down in 3 years? $120 million? How does that happen? Why are we shaking our heads?
Well, it obviously didn't happen from individual homeowners. There must have been some larger properties that had, millions a shot. I can't imagine everybody's property going down by, $10,000 or $100,000 to get $120 million. I don't know how many residences there are. Are there 15,000 residences? I don't remember. 10,000?
There was a reval with an appeals process after the reval. So you're saying since that appeal process,
I think some of
it
those were
went
still
down
going on.
$120
I mean, we can
million?
clarify, right? But aren't some of those appeals still going on from the reval?
I
don't know how long it
We-
takes.
We could ask.
It's ridiculous. It's absurd.
I think the point, Mr. President, I think the point is that that's a number that was received directly from the tax department in town, that we just have to look at it and take it.
I think it needs to
You
be
know,
questioned.
Yeah.
I think it needs to be
Well,
seriously
they did
questioned.
question.
All right. Okay, any other clarifying questions? Okay. We will continue the discussion, which I expect to be more vigorous later on in the action agenda. Okay. Now I'd like to move on to approval of minutes. Thank you. Okay, I'd like to entertain.
I do have a few more pieces of good news, if I can.
Oh, you do? I'm
If I
sorry.
could share.
Superintendent's report is not finished.
It's not all taxation tonight.
Thank you.
I do have a few pieces of good news.
We'll bookend it, the music and now this. Okay, good.
Thank you. Christopher Chi, Albert Liu, and Christopher Zhang, all Hillsborough High School students, were named semifinalists in the National Physics Olympiad. The Physics Olympiad is a national physics assessment competition. Congratulations to all of those Hillsborough High School students.
Is there one of them in the audience? Okay, just moral support from friends. Great.
That's great. I'm actually going to pause for a moment because I want to share a video that got honorable mention at the White House for how technology is being used. And let me just read the narrative very quickly. In November 2013, the White House asked K through 12 grade students across the country to describe the role technology plays in their classroom via the 2014 White House Student Film Festival. The White House received over 2,000 entries, including an entry from Pierce Griffin, a third grader at Woods Road Elementary School. On February 23, 2014, Pierce received notification that his entry had received an honorable mention at this year's festival. At a school-wide assembly held on February 28th, Pierce was presented with his certificate, and Pierce is here tonight with both of his parents. Pierce and Mom and Dad, if you could stand up and be recognized at this time. I actually want to try to play a piece of the video, if I could. If you could just give me a quick moment, I'd like to cue that up. No, unfortunately, it's going to take me a little bit more time than I expected. I will be available later on in the meeting, and we'll make sure that we cue that up. Again, congratulations to Pierce Griffin and his family. Wonderful job. You know, and I'm not going to let this go. Pierce, you have to tell me, what do I search YouTube for? Say it nice and loud so I can hear it.
Come on up.
21st Century Classroom. Okay, we're almost there. By P.J. Griffin.
All right,
There we go.
recognize that.
Okay.
Handsome man.
There we go. Hold on a second. Yep.
Switch your screen. There you go.
There we go.
All right.
Go to full screen.
Are you ready? Here we go.
Hi, I'm Peter Sassoon from Woodrow School in New Jersey. Way back in the 1970s, when my parents were students, school was much different. They used this strange-looking thing, an abacus, to help them with math. Teachers mostly used blackboards, chalk, and erasers. Now they're basically a thing of the past. Can you believe there was no internet? They basically had to use encyclopedias to look up everything. Well, that was then, and this is now. Welcome to the 21st century, where school is a lot cooler. This is the classroom at Woodrow School, and as you will see, technology has made learning a lot more fun.
Let's give Pierce a big hand. That was wonderful, Pierce.
Yeah, back in our days, Google was called the World Book Encyclopedia.
Shifting gears for a moment, on March 1st, the Hillsborough High School boys basketball team went into overtime against Gill St. Bernard in the finals of the Somerset County tournament title. The team pulled ahead in the final seconds and held the lead to win the tournament title with a final score of 53-52. Congratulations to the boys' high school basketball team. On Friday night, March 7th, the Hillsborough High School Theater Department debuted its spring musical, Fiddler on the Roof, to a packed house. The production will continue through next weekend, and I encourage everyone to attend. From the front of the stage to the back of the house, all the students involved did an amazing job. I was there with my family. It was outstanding, outstanding. Congratulations to those that participated on Fiddler on the Roof. The Robo-Raiders, many of whom are in the audience tonight, hosted their third annual science fair this past Saturday at Hillsborough High School as part of the Technology Innovation Week. Central New Jersey students in grades 5 through 12 were invited to participate. Thank you for another great event hosted by Team 75 to get younger students excited about science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Thank you, Team 75. Now, on a more somber note, it is with great sorrow that I share with the board and our community the passing of a beloved Woods Road Elementary School staff member. Jill Russo, an instructional assistant, passed away on February 28th. Jill was an integral part of the school staff and was adored by her students. She has touched many lives far beyond Woods Road family. Our thoughts and prayers are with her, her family, and her friends at this time. And that's my report.
Thank you, Dr. Schiff. Moving on with the agenda, with approval of minutes, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the February 24th, 2014 special meeting minutes.
So moved?
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, and all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And abstentions? I'm abstaining. And, yeah. Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the February 24th, 2014 regular meeting minutes.
So moved?
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed and abstentions?
Abstain.
Abstain. Okay. And I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the February 24th, 2014 executive session minutes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
Abstain. Okay, thank you.
Motion passes.
Motion, all three motions pass. Okay, moving on to committee reports. Who'd like to
We just
start?
had operating.
Operations.
Yeah, well, I'm going to start, but mine's going to be 10 seconds. Operations Committee met not just once, as Dr. Schiff indicated in his report, but we met again 4 days later on Wednesday to continue discussions of the budget. And we talked about the budget. We're going to talk about that later, so that's all I have to report this time. You can ask me questions later about what we did in there.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gillette. Now we're opening up the floor, the podium, to the public. First, we'll open the floor for members from the public for new business. So as you come up, please state your name and address. And then we'll continue on with public input on the budget and then on the action.
Hi, my name's Kim Zarametta, 22 Scott Drive, Hillsborough. I'm just up here to talk about a after-school program that was at the high school for the special education students that they had last year, and this year I've been in communication with the superintendent over it and with Lenore Johnson, who was our director. They weren't able to have the club again this year due to grant money, a loss of grant money, and then they had to make decisions, and that was a cut. I would just like to let the board know a little bit about this program and how of an impact it was on the students there. It was at the high school on Tuesdays and Thursdays. It was an hour after school, and they had their own club. They were the Raider Club. They did all different types of things. The staff worked very hard to make it all work for everybody. It was a very good social environment. It was for the special education students who don't really have opportunities after school to do anything. They go home after school, they're home by, 2:45, and there's nowhere for them to go. They're of high school age students. They don't have clubs, and a lot of them, are behaviorally challenged and cannot go into any of these other programs. So that meant a real lot to them. So it was a very significant impact for us to not have that again this year. So I'm asking the board to have that in the budget. It was a very small amount of money, from what I understand. It's not an exorbitant amount of money. These students, and the staff worked very hard to make this program work, and for it to be gone, and now they have nothing. So they go home to nothing. So they have no after-school program. They made friendships, they learned social skills, they learned life skills. It was a learning environment, and it's very detrimental to them. Hillsborough's been a pioneer to special education here in town. We've been very pleased with services, and staff works very hard, and things like this should not disappear, in our eyes. And it affected a lot of the students, so I would really ask the board to, put this it should be a line item in a budget. It shouldn't be based on grant money, because grant money is not a given every year, as we all know. So I would really like to see that, in the budget. I know times are tough and the budget's tough, but, there should be changes made, and things like this should be there. Something should be available to them, and it's not. So it's, I would really hope that you would be able to seriously give that some thought and, make that a line item in the budget. And it shouldn't be something that, be done away with every year, or maybe not. So that's it.
Great. Thank you, Mrs. Zimmerman.
Also, I'd like to note that I would hope that there's going to be no significant changes within the special education, because we have all new administration now, and I just hope that things remain the same and, nothing else be taken away from that program. It's very detrimental to those students. They're the, the voices that are never heard, so. That's it.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve Cohen, 60 Oak Terrace. Hard to follow Kim. Just to remind everybody, this is Autism Month. March is Autism Month. I'd also like to remind some of you who haven't been around a long time that Hillsborough is known especially for its autism program. That many of the people that moved to this town, Kim being one of them, having left Middlesex, where she had a beautiful home and a lot of friends, and she came to Hillsborough because Middlesex would not give her what she needed to sustain her children, or her child. And having had experience being a substitute teacher in the school system and working with many of the teachers that are dedicated to the special needs programs, we shouldn't be thinking about cutting anything when it comes to these kids. We should be thinking about adding. This brings a special, it helps making Hillsborough become what it is, which is one of the best places to live. So let's don't cut it, let's bring it back in, and let's add more money before we add computers.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen.
Jack Chittarelli, 70 Murray Drive here in Hillsborough. And Dr. Schiff, thank you for that very, very well-organized and informative presentation that you gave. It really summed it up greatly. And if it says anything, it says just how challenging your job is as a board, especially this year. These are the most challenging of times. It is the perfect storm when your tax base is decreasing and there are a great many costs that are outside your control are increasing. And so on behalf of the community that we both represent, I've served at the municipal level, I've served at the county level, and now I have the privilege of serving you at the state level. There is no tougher elected position than Board of Education. So I'd like to do something a little unorthodox. I think we need to say thank you to them for their public service with a round of applause. I know what you're saying, Tom. When was the last time we got a round of applause during budgets? It seems that overnight the world has become a fiercely competitive global marketplace. And many have suggested that the countries that will compete best in that marketplace are those that excel in the STEM fields: science, technology, engineering, and math. It's been said that it's almost a matter of national security for the United States to maintain its leadership position in the world, to concentrate in these areas, for the simple reason that we are starting to fall behind when compared to other countries. There's one aspect of that we don't need to worry about here in Hillsborough. There is one magnificent organization. I refer to them as Hillsborough Robotics. They're also known as Team 75, Robo Raiders, that have endeavored week in, week out in the STEM fields. They have they've distinguished themselves. They have brought great pride to our community by distinguishing our school system and our community, our county, and our state. In fact, as recently, I think as 3 Saturdays ago, they won another regional competition in Mount Olive, and we congratulate you for that. Robo Raiders is extremely appreciative to this Board of Education for I think there's 2 very modest faculty stipends they provide each year to help facilitate what it is they do, primarily on their own as a private organization, very much dependent upon the community. And let's be clear, we are forever grateful to the corporations that give every single year to help this great organization sustain itself, specifically Johnson & Johnson. However, there's something very important about a community investing in an organization like this. And the best way for a community to be vested and invest is through its Board of Education. You've all received my memorandum. And in the spirit of full disclosure and transparency, I have 4 children going through the Hillsborough school system. None of them, to my chagrin, are in robotics. To my chagrin. And any of you, and I know many of you have gone to the competitions, what these guys are achieving is extraordinary. And just the fact that they endeavor in this area of the STEM fields, 118 of them this year, freshmen, sophomore, juniors, and seniors, with great involvement across the board. All students participate, and their accomplishments are extraordinary. And so I feel strongly that the best way to show that this community is invested in those students who endeavor to excel in the STEM field is by some type of support beyond what we're currently doing with the faculty stipends to support this organization, and in so doing, make them a bona fide high school extracurricular activity, as Montgomery has, as Bridgewater Raritan has, as Hunterdon Central has. So with that, what I want to say tonight more than anything is thank you. Thank you for your consideration of what we've requested in the memorandum that I've sent to you. Nothing more, nothing less. Just thank you for your very, very serious consideration. Many times when a budget is as difficult as this one, it's an excellent time to reassess and reestablish priorities. There was an old legislator, and when I say old, I don't mean in terms of age, but somebody who served for a very, very long time and distinguished himself. His name was Walt Kavanaugh. He served Hillsborough for a very long time in the state legislature. His famous line during the most difficult of times was, "Can we afford to do this?" No, the question is, can we afford to not do this? With that, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chiarelli.
Hello, my name is Jane Tong, and I'm currently president of Team 75. Some of you may remember me from last year when I regularly attended these meetings to present brief updates on different team events. So similarly, I'd just like to start off by giving you a brief recap about our competition 2 weekends ago. On March 1st and 2nd, Team 75 went to the first competition event of its 2014 season at Mount Olive High School. At this event, by the end of the qualification matches, we were ranked 3rd, and as a result, we were able to pick 2 additional teams with whom we advanced to the finals. In these finals, we were actually able to win over the first-seeded Alliance, and as you can imagine, we were ecstatic. Additionally, during the award ceremony, Team 75 was presented the Engineering Inspiration Award, which celebrates outstanding success in advancing respect and appreciation for engineering within a team's school and community. This award serves as a reminder that while we are a robotics team, our activities go far beyond building a robot. I would just like to touch upon a few of the different community outreach events that our team holds. As Dr. Schiff mentioned earlier, this past week was Technology Innovation Week, a week our team helped pass into New Jersey state law in 2010. As part of this week, we held a science fair this past Saturday at the high school, and we're proud to say that this year, participation was phenomenal. We had over 19 participants submitting different projects within the STEM fields. Also, this coming Friday, actually right here in the Otten Road cafeteria, we will be holding a Girl Scouts badge night where girls will cycle through a series of interactive presentations and hands-on science experiments. I think it's clear that not only does Team 75 provide its own members incredible opportunities, it's an asset to both its school and community and should be recognized as such. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Valerie Krull, and I'm a member of Team 75. This is my second year on Team 75, but I was in First LEGO League in 6th through 8th grade before I became a Roborator. I loved being part of an FLL team, especially when we visited Team 75's warehouse and when the members of 75 came to help mentor our teams. At the warehouse, everyone was really kind and knowledgeable about the team and their specific department. And the mentors that came to help us really helped us, and they taught us so much about FLL and all the different things that we could do in STEM. At the warehouse, everyone taught us about the team and really interested us in STEM. When I joined Team 75 as a freshman, everyone on the team was so accepting and willing to teach all of the new members. I gained so many new friends and experienced things I would never have been able to do if I had not joined Team 75. Not to mention that my eyes have been opened countless times to all the new possibilities in STEM fields that I would not have known about. Year after year, Team 75 continues these efforts in reaching out to all the Hillsborough District schools in order to interest students in STEM and help keep their interest as they transition to the high school, so that they will have the same amazing experiences that everyone on Team 75 has had. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Alex Duncan. I was a 2013 graduate of Hillsborough High School, Team 75, and I'm a current freshman at Carnegie Mellon University. I spent a total of 7 years in the robotics program between the LEGO League and Team 75. To the average student in high school, members of our team fit a certain criteria. They're always busy, they're nerds, and they're always together. It's pretty understandable why a robotics team shows these traits during our build season, but I'd rather shed some light on why Team 75 members follow this pattern outside of the season. As a college student, I like to think I know what the word busy means. I'm double majoring and playing a varsity sport, and why do that to myself? My answer is simple. I love what I do. This robotics team has a way of proving to students that no matter how hard you work, you have to work at it. Doing what you enjoy is worth every moment you put into it. We have 6 weeks to build a robot. Putting ourselves through the first robotics experience does more than we realize. Before the Roborators, I was unorganized, pretty unproductive, and I hate to admit it, but I was pretty darn lazy. Anyone who has been to college could tell you that these traits are a recipe for disaster. Team 75 taught me quickly to find work that needs to be done and to do it. When you only have 6 weeks to build a robot, nobody has time to worry about the small things. They simply have to get done. College is much the same way. Tackle the work and get it done right the first time. Having a sense of urgency and a focus on precision comes easily when you enjoy the task at hand. Being on Team 75 helped me realize that in college, nothing gets done if you don't love what you do. Being on a robotics team doesn't necessarily make you smart. Having the technological know-how isn't all we're after. It's the process that develops us and gives us the curiosity to learn. My first day on this team, I walked into a room full of people who already had programming experience and electrical experience and others who had skills working with metal. There was little I thought I could contribute among all these talented people. And I hate to admit it, but I was of absolutely no use to the team that year. My sophomore year, I walked into the same exact room thinking, these people are smarter than I am, and that's great. There were seniors in the room who had done this 3 times before. I was going to pick their brains about everything robotics. That's what makes our team great, upperclassmen passing on their knowledge. So yeah, we're nerds, but that's fantastic because we want to learn. We aren't afraid to ask questions and think big. And that's why we stand apart from students that listen to teachers and spit the information right back out. We're kids that go home after hearing about the speed of light and the next day having a full-length conversation with their physics teacher about time dilation. I'm not kidding. That happened. We work hard and always want to know more. Something astounding happens when you put together people who have a passion for solving problems in the robot, in the community, and elsewhere. This is a team that builds leadership and pride. It's a team where an over-energetic freshman, like I was, can help rally a team to scream at the top of their lungs over a simple game. Without realizing it, this team taught me leadership. Team 75 gives students a work ethic, passion for what they do, and builds them into leaders. These skills are applicable in the program, but mean so much more once a student graduates. At Carnegie Mellon, I'm majoring in mechanical engineering and robotics, and I have the Robo-Raiders to thank for that. This is a fantastic program that deserves all of your support. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Gigi Skeel, or in these circles, I think I'm better known as Betsy's mom. All three of our children participated in the FIRST robotics program at HHS. First, one way to think about FIRST is to think of it as, this is a very small way, think of it as a major sports league, like the NBA or the Major League Baseball or the NFL. So when I refer to FIRST, have that in your mind, okay? I was a parent volunteer for the Team 75 for 9 seasons and continue this year as a parent alum, so this is my 10th year. And for the sake of I'm not the only one. We have quite a few of us that have been here 10 years. For the sake of brevity, I'll speak anecdotally, but everything I say can be verified by data. I urge the Hillsborough Board of Education to support HHS robotics team with financial resources, and I'll give you 3 reasons. First, the program can be life-changing for those who participate, and Alex has already given you an example for that. And it's not only those who go into STEM fields, but those who don't. When our daughter started her freshman year at the high school, she was not a confident person, nor someone who was comfortable speaking in public. Her involvement in Team 75 changed all that. Through her participation in the program, she became the public relations manager and eventually the non-tech vice president. She coordinated and edited the team newsletter, initiated the Boxes from Home project for military personnel. She confidently interacted with local media personnel. She gave regular reports at this meeting. And I hear she interacted well with upper management at Johnson & Johnson. The mentoring she received and the activities in which she could practice her new skills cultivated in her a confidence that has launched her into a college major in communications and public relations. My husband and I are very thankful for the training and opportunities that the FIRST robotics program provided for her. But other parents will tell you similar stories. They also have children who were enormously influenced and mentored by this program, just as Alex. And many of these students have entered STEM programs in colleges and are working in STEM fields as college graduates. Participation in the FIRST robotics program at HHS has opened up college acceptance opportunities, scholarships, and paid internships for Hillsborough High School students and graduates. Here's my second reason. We cannot take corporate sponsorship for granted. Last year, Carmine Rizzo, Team 75's lead mentor, was asked by his supervisors to showcase the FIRST robotics program at J&J's TEDx conference in New Brunswick. In a financial environment in which the funding of projects is always being evaluated, it's important that J&J's upper management understand the FIRST robotics program and its value and its benefits. Carmine asked our daughter and Eric Scardelli, a college student, to accompany him that day to talk to J&J personnel about the robotics program. You may remember that Eric was the manager of Team 75's design team when Hillsborough won the design award at World Championships in 2011. The students spoke to scores of J&J employees that day, explaining the benefits of the FIRST robotics program, and were happy later to learn that funding for all of J&J's 17 teams would continue this year. This activity reminded me, though, that we cannot think of the funding from J&J as automatic. Like any other New Jersey pharmaceutical company, J&J is always having to make choices that will yield a healthy economic situation for the company. And then this is my third point, and this fell in my lap a week and a half ago in this room. The FIRST robotics program provides an invaluable educational experience. Thanks to you, our school district has acknowledged the importance of the interface between technology and education. A week and a half ago, we had a representative from Google here speaking to parents, community members, and staff about the interface between technology and education. He talked about the need to teach students the skills and thought processes that will be necessary to tackle real-world problems in the future. He highlighted 3 concepts: problem solving, collaboration, and innovation, and he made a big deal about those 3 words. These concepts are not new to me because I have been hearing about them and watching these skills being cultivated in our students for the last 10 years in Team 75. Problem solving. The reason that FIRST presents a new game every season is to give students new problems to solve. One year the robot needs to shoot a ball in a goal. Another year it has to throw a frisbee. Another year it might have to lift something onto a rack or climb a structure. It's for the purpose of teaching problem solving that a new challenge is given every year. Collaboration. In the FIRST robotics program, collaboration is always rewarded. Students collaborate with their own teams, and teams collaborate with each other. Team 75 is in a collaboration group of 4 teams with different schools, from different schools. This year, collaboration with other teams is even rewarded with points on the field, that is, in the game itself. Innovation. The FIRST robotics program excels in this area. Team 75 members are not taught just to use technology, they are taught to create technology. About 2 weeks ago, there was a photo on the front page of the Hillsborough Beacon of Team 75 members and a client in a wheelchair from the Matheny Rehabilitation Hospital. The Hillsborough community may see that photo and not realize the significance of what they're seeing. Matheny approached Team 75 and said there was a certain task that their clients needed to practice in their rehab, but there was not a machine anywhere on the market that could be purchased to teach this task. So through the process of problem solving and collaboration, Team 75 invented and manufactured a machine that could be used by Matheny's clients. This is innovation. The casual observer might think that a program that uses nuts, bolts, electrical wire, and computers belongs at the vocational technical high school. I disagree. Just as higher critical thinking is taught in English and history classes, and the tools that are used are paper and pencils or a computer, higher critical thinking is taught in the FIRST robotics program. It's just that the tools that are being used are nuts and bolts, electrical wire, and computers. It's my opinion that the Hillsborough Board of Education must support the HHS robotics program. My first choice would be that robotics program would be which incorporated the principles of FIRST, would be included in the school day and staffed by a qualified teacher. I'm convinced this is the way of the future, and it's already taking place in schools around the country. But if this scenario is not possible, funding the HHS FIRST Team 75, the Robo-Raiders, so that it can continue as an extracurricular activity is the next best solution. Thank you very much for your time and for considering this request.
Real quick, I think, over at least the past couple of years that I've been on the board, we've sincerely appreciated the reports, and it's good to see you come back this year from years past. We're very proud of Team 75, and it's not so much, you guys, the competition is one aspect, but we're actually more proud on the way, how you do things and what you do outside of the competition. And so if we haven't voice that enough, there's an opportunity to thank you for what you do. And imitation, I guess, is one of the sincerest forms of flattery. And as you may have noticed, and when we talked about the strategic plan, and we talked earlier about world languages and the one-to-one technology, another aspect is incorporating science, technology, engineering, mathematics at the middle school level and using robotics as the medium for that, and that's an inspiration that you guys have provided to the board. I don't know if Dr. Schiff wants to talk more specifically about that, and then we've heard you, and again, we're very proud.
Well, I've been wildly impressed with Team 75 since I came here. One of the first experiences I had my first month of being superintendent was being invited down to the old workshop on Route 206. And I actually think it was Betsy who gave me the tour. And she and I think another young lady walked me through these different groups of kids that were working on different projects. And as we turned the corner to get into the fabrication area, there was a young man, he probably looked like a varsity football player, being helped with his math homework from a physically disabled child. And I was impressed by the diversity of the kids that are working together collaboratively, and how it didn't matter who you were, what your interests were, you were working on a shared vision of doing this robot and working together and coordinating and collaborating in very impressive ways. I walked over to the back where they were doing the telemetry work, and one of the students looked up at me and said, "Hey, Dr. Schiff, do you want to see how I use trigonometry to determine the angle of elevation as this claw reaches this inflatable tube and puts it on a rack?" Do you remember that a few years ago? That was that? You guys remember. I mean, come on, applying trigonometry? This is what it's all about. And as a result of my interactions with many of you, we put within our strategic plan a pillar, and that pillar was STEM, and trying to incorporate something. And we're not there, we're not fully there yet. We're moving on it. We've implemented the program at the middle school, but we can do more. And I hope we're able to add additional financial resources to Team 75. But as you saw today, these are not easy decisions. We have a significant tax increase that we're going to be discussing. We have some difficult decisions that we may or may not have to implement moving on into next year, and we have to weigh all of those priorities. But there was something that Jack Chidarelli said just a moment ago. Can we afford to do it, or can we afford not to do it? And those are the questions that this board will be wrestling over the next 6 weeks with. I do appreciate everyone who spoke. I have to tell you, the students are so articulate, so smart. Let's give them a big round of applause. You make us very proud. Parents and supporters, you did a nice job too, but I was actually more impressed with the kids. Great job, people.
Okay, thanks. Is there any more public comment? Okay, I'd like to take a 5-minute recess so that we can talk with the Robo-Raters and their supporters one-on-one, and also give them a chance to get out, get back, and get back to either their homework, the teamwork, or catching up on some sleep. Thanks. We'll take about a 5-minute recess. From recess? Okay, we're back from recess. I just want to confirm that there's no other public comment. We can open it up for budget.
Danon Blevins, president of the Hillsborough Education Association. I'd like to speak about the budget a little bit. We know we're in a financial problem here, and the problem really is with the state. With state aid at a 0.6% increase and costs such as healthcare and energy rising, it is almost impossible to run a school district at the 2% cap. I wish Assemblyman Chidarelli was still here to hear this. Hopefully he'll see it on YouTube. Trenton is not doing their share and is putting the burden on the community members. It is time for the board and the community to let the governor and Trenton know that this is no longer acceptable. However, I have some serious problems with the proposal to privatize the substitutes and nighttime custodians. I have looked into Source for Teachers, one of the companies talked about with the substitutes, and I have to say I am underimpressed with the reputation of this company. They employ and frequently use substitutes that are certified teachers, but in other states, not in New Jersey. Like all privatization companies, they have extended time to complete background checks. These companies use people from other work sites in the beginning when everyone is watching them, and then start using the unchecked employees when they think no one else is still watching. With the nighttime custodians, forget the fact that these people have worked for us for years and that most of them are community members as well. The number of nighttime activities that we have in this district puts our kids and the community at risk with people we know nothing about. In other districts, such as South Brunswick, they have tried this and found it wasn't worth it due to the problems they had with these employees and the theft that they experienced through these employees, they discontinued their privatization and brought the jobs back to the district. Financially, these two options are not necessary. While we are using all of the 2012-2013 banked cap, we are only using 1/3 of the 2013-2014 banked cap. That means the district still has $1.3 million of cap at their disposal. On top of that, 2 years ago, we were $300,000 under budget on our extraordinary aid. Last year, we were $500,000 under budget with the extraordinary aid. It seems this year we have budgeted $81,000 for extraordinary aid, which means we have more than $500,000 available. Right there is $2 million available to the district before we are forced to look at things like privatization. I am not sure why the board would want to give up authority over the employed substitutes and custodians and risk potential problems with background checks and the safety of our students. Even if our current employees were to take these jobs with the private companies, these employees and community members would be making wages below the poverty level. It just does not make sense. As I said at the beginning, this financial situation is the fault of Trenton. While it is not fair to make the communities of New Jersey pay for Trenton, $21 per family is better than destroying the lives of the substitutes and custodians. And the $21 comes from that's what it would cost to not privatize the custodians. These people would not be able to support their own families with these wages. And I don't think it's definitely not their fault, even though it's not the New Jersey taxpayers either. So I urge the board to not consider privatization and use the funds that you have available to you first. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blevins. Okay, any other public comment with regard to the budget? Okay. Any public comment with regard to the action agenda? Okay. Moving on to the action agenda, Dr. Schiff.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for the board's consideration of the following motions under the area of education: to approve travel and related expenses, field trips as listed; to approve the following staff members who assisted in the evening kindergarten registration for extra time work beyond the hours previously approved; to approve certified school nurse for being present during a student Saturday detention; to approve the overnight field trip as listed.
I'd like to entertain a motion to approve items A1 through A5 of the action agenda.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Okay, any discussion? Dr. Hassan.
We actually received an email today from a community member that referenced the nurse with the that we were approving for hypoglycemia, and asked if a student has detention on a weekend because they misbehaved, why is the board responsible? I actually thought that was a really good idea, a really good question. Why are we not having them have detention when nurses are available? Or why are we not charging this expense to the parents?
Dr. Antunes, do you have to say?
I asked my nursing supervisor the exact same question, so she'll be getting back to me on that.
All right. Any other discussion? Okay. Roll call, please, Mr. Mahmood.
Ms. Bogoshevsky?
Yes.
Ms. Santafonte?
Yes.
Ms. Dutta? Mr. Dutta?
Yes.
Mr. Gillette?
Yes.
Mrs. Haas?
Yes.
Mrs. Haley?
Yes.
Mr. Pulsifer?
Yes.
Ms. Wasson?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Motion passes. Continuing on with the action agenda. Dr. Schiff.
Thank you. I ask for the board's consideration of the following motions that I'm recommending under the area of human resources. The retirements of Laura Gainsborg, 8th grade literacy teacher, who has worked in the district since 1986. Also, Marilyn Leone, computer resource teacher, who has worked with us since 1992. Karen Moriarty, ASI teacher at Woodfern, who has been with us since 1993. Patricia Powers, special education teacher at Woodrow School, who's been with us since 1994. And I already announced the news of Joe Russo's passing. We thank all of those who have dedicated their years of service to the children of Hillsborough Township Public Schools. Moving on to approve the revised leaves of absence as listed, revised long-term substitutes, revised contract and contract changes, the leaves of absence, approve the appointments of long-term substitutes, transportation aid, instructional assistant, coaches, substitutes, and school psychologists. I'm sorry, we have a few more. And to approve extra period coverages as listed, the revised extra period coverage, group changes, and that's all.
And this contains the amendments? Okay. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve items B1 through B10 of the action agenda.
So moved.
Have a second?
Second. Oh,
Anybody can second?
anybody can second? Sure.
Any discussion?
That was your privilege.
Okay, roll call, please, Mr. Mahmood.
Ms. Bogoshevsky?
Yes.
Ms. Santafonte?
Yes.
Mr. Dutta?
Yes.
Mr. Gillette?
Yes.
Mrs. Haas?
Yes.
Mrs. Haley?
Yes.
Mr. Pulsifer?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
And Mr. Kidd?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion passes. Continue on with the action agenda. Dr. Schiff.
Thank you. I ask for the board's consideration of the following motions under the area of operations: to approve line item transfers, to approve the resolution for application for funds to support the implementation of the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights, to accept the donation from Google of 6 Chromecast units, to approve the 2014-2015 tentative budget as presented, as well as approve the use of bank cap funds and the health benefits waiver, to approve travel and related expense reimbursement resolution, and to approve capital reserve account withdrawal resolution, and to approve a resolution for the ESIP project, to approve the joint transportation agreement, and that's all.
Okay. All right, I'm going to break this up so that we can do C4 and C5 later. So first, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve items C1 through C3 and C6 through C9.
So moved.
Okay, do I have a second?
Oh, second? Did someone move it? Second.
Okay. No, Jen. And then Greg. Yep. Okay, again, this is C1 through C3 and C6 through C9. Any discussion? All right, I had one question with regard to the application for funds to support the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights.
Yes.
In there, I noticed that there it wasn't any request for any positions, and I know that we have multiple HIB officers at each school, specialists. Is there something that precluded us from requesting that as well?
Mr. Whitlock completed that application.
Oh, I'm sorry. In the application for the HIB, I noticed that there weren't any requests for compensation for personnel. So specialists, HIB officer, those types of things. Is there a reason why they were not included?
It would have to be for an expense in addition or outside of their current job description. It would be beyond what a counselor would do. So we didn't have anybody that would be eligible for it. We haven't hired anyone in addition that we would want to be recouped for.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. Any other discussion? Again, C1, C3, C6, or C9? Okay. Roll call, please, Mr. Mahmood.
Ms. Bogoshevsky?
Yes.
Ms. Santafonte?
Yes.
Mr. Dutta?
Yes.
Mr. Gillette?
Yes.
Mrs. Haas?
Yes.
Mrs. Haley?
Yes.
Mr. Pulsifer?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Kidd?
Yes. Motion passes. Okay. Now I'm going to first do C4. C5 is going to be based on the outcome of C4. If it's as is presented in the action agenda, then C5 will stand as it is, and if it's different, then it'll be resulting for that. So I'd like to entertain a motion to approve item C4 of the action agenda.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion. No, there is. Mrs. Haley. So let me just have a couple ground rules. I'd prefer not to go into specific line items for budgets for what you support, what you don't, but I do feel it's our responsibility to provide guidance to Dr. Schiff, to the superintendent, in terms of where we would want priorities, both in terms of what we want to have, make sure it gets addressed, and things that we feel that could be deprioritized. So I'll just open it up with that. Mrs. Haley.
Thank you. One of the reasons I was hesitant to move the board elections from April to November was because I felt voters should have a say about the budget. Average Joe citizen does not know that there's an asterisk in the law saying that you can go to bank cap, but here we are proposing it. I've been on the operations committee for 3 years. I was proud of the fact that we were able to keep our increases under 2% every year, and this board came to an agreement on that each year. Now I feel as if being fiscally responsible was a punishment, and we're punishing the taxpayers. I refuse to vote yes if we go above the 2% cap. If we did not have the bank cap, or if we were legally not allowed to dip into the bank cap, what would we do? While I can appreciate the fact that we receive more unfunded mandates every year, such as adding 5 more special education positions, park testing, and countless others since I've been on this board, we must get used to the fact that this is our new reality. Health and benefits costs are rising in double digits every year. That's a reality. We need to face facts and know that we will most likely never see large state aid increases again, and we will have surprises every year. But we cannot continue to spend if the money is not there, period. Plus, the district has other issues to deal with, such as capital improvements. And although we are proposing doing 4 roofs, what about the other 5 schools that most likely need capital improvements as well? I've been to countless events over the past few weeks, and seeing buckets everywhere is not a sight that anybody wants to see. So now we're faced with the prospect of outsourcing in 2 areas. I don't agree with that. There's a reason I voted no on every administration position that's come to the table during my tenure on the board. We shouldn't have approved them. Now we sit here in the position of choosing technology initiatives over people that live in our community. While I support the idea of technology in the classroom, if we cannot afford it, we should not do it. We should also be looking at prioritizing programs. If this was a business, or if this was a budget in your household, you would be sitting back saying, what are we going to do? Where are we going to cut? You do not get an asterisk at home, you don't get an asterisk in business, and we should not treat taxpayer dollars as an asterisk either. So I stand firm in my belief that we should not use the bankable cap. No exceptions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Haley. Mr. Gillette.
Yeah, thank you, Mrs. Haley, for those comments. You've been a valuable member of our Operations Committee for 3 years. So I thought I'd spend just a couple of minutes to talk about how the Operations Committee came to, along with Dr. Schiff, came to the budget that is presented on the agenda tonight. When Dr. Schiff explained how they developed the budget, so I won't begin there. But Dr. Schiff came to us on the Operations Committee with a budget that was able to pay for everything, the one-to-one initiative, no outsourcing of anything, using the entire health care waiver that's allowable, and using the entire banked cap, because we did not go to cap in the last 2 previous years. So we had some available to use in a subsequent year. His budget also, though, had some assumptions, had some assumption that ratables would stay flat, and that we would get around $400,000 maybe in state aid increase. When we got much less than $400,000 in state aid increase, and we saw ratables drop by what equates to like $1.75 million in tax revenue for us, I asked Dr. Schiff to go back to what the board had previously agreed to about using bank cap. We didn't agree to it in open session, so I don't know if it's proper to talk about it here, but I'm going to let it all out anyway. I don't care. I've never cared. We knew, the board knew, except for Mrs. Haley, who doesn't participate in negotiation discussions, that to settle this contract with our largest union, and remember they were here, settle now signs, they wanted it settled. To settle the contract, we would have to use the health care waiver and some of the banked cap, at least some of it. That amounts next year to a number. There's a number associated with that. Our costs toward the contract next year are an increase of 4.06%. How much would that equate to in tax levy? That's what we asked Dr. Schiff for, and he figured it out. It was about $1.3 million less than what he originally asked for. I said, well, that's what the board has said they would do as far as going over the cap. We'd go over the cap enough to honor and pay for the settling of the contract. So Dr. Schiff was asked to go back and see if he could trim $1.3 million from the budget. I personally made some suggestions based on suggestions that had been floated by Dr. Schiff in the past. I think you'll agree, Dr. Schiff, that you had mentioned that there's that you would explore possibilities of privatizing custodians. We talked about that several years ago also. You've mentioned the possibility of a service for long-term subs and our daily substitutes. So we suggested that, and I think the Operations Committee was also open to any other ideas. The Operations Committee also suggested if you could look at a revamping of how, or maybe even the scope of the one-to-one initiative. And Dr. Schiff did all those things. He looked at the outsourcing, got some ideas how much that would save, and looked at how he could adjust the one-to-one initiative. That's how we got to the budget that you see in front of you tonight. I certainly don't think that with the tremendous tax rateable hit that we have this year, that we can ask to go above what's here tonight. I know there are some board members that want to go below this. And I don't think there's any board members that particularly relish the outsourcing of anything. At the Operations Committee meeting, I particularly did not like the outsourcing of the, and I'm speaking just for me now, of the substitutes. I thought the savings derived from that on something that would affect so many teachers and so many classrooms was not worth it. But we still have to examine it because as a board, as representatives of the taxpayer, we wouldn't be doing our duty up here if we didn't look at something that could save $300,000, and particularly if we didn't look at something that could save $700,000. We'd be shirking our duty. I mean, anytime there's a plan that would save $700,000, I think we have to look at it. As far as who would take those custodial positions, there are 35 people making $8 an hour now somewhere in New Jersey that would love to have those positions. I don't think those people are any less deserving of a great job than the people we have now. They're not any less deserving. I think everybody deserves a job. This is something for the board to debate, whether they want to save $700,000 or not. It's up to you guys. You can do whatever you want. That's all I have to say.
May I make a quick statement? Yep. Thank you, Mr. Gillette. I just wanted to share for the board and for the public when I was asked to reduce what I presented to each of the committees, I needed to think in my own mind what are my priorities for the district, and my priority was not to cut a teacher. So that was what guided my decision making in making the recommendations for the board's consideration. So I didn't wish to go to increase class size or to reduce any teachers. That was the priority that I went with. I just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you, Dr. Schiff. Mr. Dutta.
So one of the things we should also consider, we should put everything on the table to basically see where we can reduce the cost. So it's not about single-minded decision about outsourcing or any of that stuff, but what are the various options, and then maybe prioritize those options based on public comments and whatever we feel, and then make that decision. So while I hear about not increasing the class size or not cutting teachers, I'm not saying any of those things should be considered, should be taken off the table. We should put everything on the table and actually take a look at it.
Mr. Pulsifer.
A couple of things. First of all, Jen, I very much appreciate your thoughts, and I agree with you in principle. But I think the dilemma we face is, as I mentioned at our last board meeting, that the healthcare cost increases alone more than eat up our 2% that the state allows us to add. So, and when you look at the other costs, and I'm doing this from memory, so I'm probably not exactly right, but the energy cost was an increase of $500,000. Around 470?
480.
490, okay.
484 or something.
I was right around that.
Yeah.
So right there alone, you've got the benefits totally wiping out the 2% cap, nearly $500,000 increase in energy, not including other costs that are going to go up that we have no control over. So while we have to be fiscally prudent, I think it's nearly impossible not to exceed the 2%. Because of the situation we find ourselves in. I wouldn't want, as a general rule, I don't want to go over that, but I just, as I look at those numbers, and that's before we bring the ratables into the discussion, but I just think it's, we're between several rocks in a hard place this year, and I really don't see how we can not do that. So that, anyway, that's my sentiment on the 2%. The other question I have, and I don't suppose you're part of the numbers tonight, but if you could provide them for us, we've talked about the one-to-one initiative, and one of the things that, one of the side effects, it wasn't why we did it, but was that we could use these devices for the execution of the park test. If we were to scale back our one-to-one initiative, what would that cost us in other expenses in order to execute those tests? Because I think, part of me wants to push that off in some fashion, and not just the cost. But if it's going to cost us a couple $100,000, I'm just trying to get an idea here. But if it's going to cost us that kind of money to execute those tests, in terms of having to get equipment for the short term, and when you do that, you don't get to pay a good price. You usually have to pay a premium for the short term. I think that could be a case of penny wise and pound foolish. Depending on what those numbers are, but I think we need to know that to evaluate how far we want to proceed on our one-to-one initiative. If we're going to have to spend that money anyway, we should at least try to get some longer-term value out of spending that money we would spend in that area. Thank you.
Sure. In deference to what Mr. Dutta was saying before, it may be helpful in committee to review all of those options and to dissect exactly how much additional dollars have to go into buying park computers versus the one-to-one. And we've done that analysis, and we can share that certainly in education, and we can share it across all of the committees. But it may be helpful for each committee to look at its own area, and everything being on the table and having those conversations. The good news about this year's budget development process is that the regulations have changed in how we do our budget timeframe. So we now have over 6 weeks between tentative budget approval and final budget approval to sharpen our pens and pencils and go through line by line and come at the final budget doing a very deep dive on all of the different areas and see if we can come up with different understandings and different priorities. But this was a direction that the operations committee gave to me, and in good faith, I wanted to provide them with consideration the following Wednesday. So we sat on a Saturday, and by Wednesday we had a proposal consistent with the directive from the committee.
So with regard to the operations committee, the other thing we did not want to do is we did not want to consume all of the bank cap, because if this year's the way it is, next year it's not going to turn around on a dime. So we wanted to make sure that we had some flexibility so that we could manage through that and provide a potential buffer, again, to focus on the priorities, which in this budget, it's a growth budget. There are no teachers being cut. There are teachers being added. And so we want to be able to make sure that we've got flexibility for following years. From the process perspective, I was going to
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to steal your thunder.
No, it's not thunder. We do have some extra time. So from a process perspective, it's actually better for us and the community. Over the next 6 weeks, we've got 3 more board meetings between now and the end of April. And also a round of committee meetings. So, I don't know if people have other discussions. I've got something that I want to share, at least my perspective with regard to prioritization, but I want to give other people opportunities to discuss first.
Do you want
Mrs.
something else?
Bogacheski. Okay, Mr. Gillette.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Dr. Schiff, I appreciate your good faith effort on this, but correct me if I'm wrong, and some other board members that have been here a while, like Mrs. Hoskin, can we say to the superintendent, I want a budget that cuts, $300,000 from administration, and would he have to provide that for us? I don't think, even at budget time, where the board wields its most of its power for hiring and firing, even we can't do that. He has to still, if it's going to be cuts, he has to recommend that. Is that not correct? I'm looking around. I mean, we can't direct the superintendent, even at budget time, to say, because one of my ideas was like, okay, the last 10 positions we hired, or created, whatever they were, from a vice principal to a secretary to anything in between. Last in, first out. I don't know, any idea you want. But we can't direct on personnel matters even at budget time, can we? Who knows the answer?
When we vote, and we discussed this last year, is what we vote on is the number, the final number. We have input that we provide to the administration, and there's an expectation that they'll follow that direction.
Dr. Schiff, is it?
Yeah, the board has the responsibility to create and delete positions. The board approves by resolution any new positions or any elimination of those positions. And the board has a opportunity to vote either thumbs up or thumbs down. But it's from the superintendent's recommendation.
Right. So, I mean, so a budget presented by superintendent with operations committee input, and all the committee's input, still has to have ideas that originate from the superintendent, or in some fashion.
I would say
I mean,
so,
we
but
can't start here.
yeah.
How would you react if we started saying, okay, we'd like you to eliminate 2 vice principal positions, a district supervisor position, 2 central office secretaries? How could you react to that? Can you, I mean, and now we've come up with it, and now we're voting. That doesn't work, does it?
Well, I don't think it works as well as having a conversation about values, programs, what we wish to do in the future, rather than having, that type of narrow focus on it. I would hope that you would want administration's opinion about the effects of those type of decisions. At the end of the day, you make a decision about how much resources you wish to dedicate to the education of the children of this community. My job is to try to best effectuate those dollars in a way that that helps enhance student learning.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Dr. Swasan.
In the Education Committee a few weeks ago, we got sort of a first look at this, and I think we all left there shell-shocked, maybe a little devastated. Sorry, I have to get really close to this tonight. Usually if I get too close, it starts humming. But as I said, we left there extremely disappointed in the outlook. And I appreciate Mrs. Haley's comments. I think we would all like to stay below the 2% cap. I absolutely appreciate Mr. Gillette explaining where the $1.3 million cut came from, and that the contract that we just agreed to brings us to 4.06% on its own. And I, for one, would love to be at that. My concern with what's been presented tonight, having been a volunteer for so many years in the school and knowing after school, the 3 to 11 shift here at all of the schools, those are the custodians that play such a huge role in making every HSA event, music program, everything successful. And we have very little turnover. I can honestly say the same people have at Triangle, my 4 years, my 6 years were there, here for 4 years, the middle school for 4 years. It does concern me when we discuss privatization of those, putting, if they select to stay with us, them below the poverty line, taking a 25% cut in pay and less benefits. I don't know. Yes, there's always somebody who's making $8 an hour who would see it as a benefit. But perhaps those people are not the people we want in our schools. And interacting with the kids after school, or being responsible to be in our very technology-laden classrooms. That being said, where is a good place to cut? We had very impassioned people tonight here talking about more needs, both on the special ed part and on the part of the robo-raters, which I think are very valid. And, I especially liked the mother who came up, who said this should be integrated into high school education, and it absolutely should be. That is the right way to do it. So, that brings us how to get there. I don't know. We've talked before about the one-to-one technology initiative and how it really is necessary in order to better prepare our kids, especially at the high school level, for things to come in college. So, do I have a solution? I don't. But I think it's important for the community to realize that this is an incredibly difficult process for us as we make these decisions that affect not only their tax dollars, but their children. And so that's basically what I wanted to say. We're open to hearing what the community's priorities are. I hope that as many people get in touch with us about this as they did about what snow days to use, because this is far more important in the long run. So I do appreciate the collegial way that the board has been working. I hope we can continue that and express all of our priorities openly in the committee and bring those forward and come up with a compromise solution that will not affect the quality of education or the quality of our after-school activities or the taxpayer more significantly than we have to.
Mrs. Haas.
You knew I wasn't going to comment. I really think we need to focus on our values, and to that end, I think it's a wonderful thing that Dr. Schiff continues to push forward on a strategic plan that we all voted for several years ago. Included in that strategic plan was the one-to-one initiative, and as the chair of the Education Committee, I need to tell everybody that that initiative comes at the expense of God knows how many millions of dollars of other curricular investments that are of value to our students. Yeah, it would be great to have a robotics course in our district, just like Bridgewater has. And it would be great to have some new innovative programs that we could apply for Race to the Top funds. And it would be great to have a longer school day, and it would be great to have a full-day kindergarten. And if you want me to keep going, I'm sure I could talk for another hour about that. But the choice of the educational administration here was to proceed with this technology. Now, what I would like to see is whether or not this technology creates savings elsewhere. And I don't think it's inappropriate for board members to ask for that information. For example, Chris's point about the park testing. How many computers would we have to buy anyway? Do we have to proceed with park testing? Okay, what's the loss if we don't? How many more resources are we going to put into high-stakes testing? Okay? There's a lot of stuff going on in the education side. But don't think that one-to-one technology was a simple, oh, wow, let's do that because it's cool. It wasn't. It was a proposal to help our kids reach their potential and to help them deal with the future and to help them apply for the jobs that, as Jamie Cassapp said a couple of days ago, have not even been invented yet that they're going to be applying for. So let's start there. In terms of values, privatization has never been my value. We had this discussion 3 years ago. I'm surprised it's coming up again now. Okay, as far as substitutes go, I, of course, Googled the proposed company and discovered that they charge $127 in another district per day for their substitutes. I also Googled their management, all of which is accountants, MBAs, salesmen. Didn't see one educational professional in the entire company leadership. So, and they have no clients in Somerset County, and they're based in Cherry Hill. So I would love to know if we're having trouble getting substitutes, how they're going to get substitutes, and why we would pay them more to get that. Then, if we are going to go in that direction, which I would be violently against, what savings do we get when we're paying more? Are we going to eliminate 10 positions in the personnel office? I don't think so, because we don't have 10 positions in the personnel office. We do everything on a shoestring. So I'm not really seeing the savings that we're going to get there. Okay? Okay, my turn. As far as custodians go, I think I remarked to our superintendent that when we had Jamie Cassapp here last week, we had 400 chairs set up, and in the time it took me to say goodnight to Joel Handler after that was over, every single chair in this room was buried under the stage by some very, very efficient night custodians. And between you and me, I wouldn't want to see it any other way. I appreciate what you say about the $8 an hour employee, but a lot of our employees, okay, are 16 to 20 years with the district. I really don't think it's fair to say to them, thank you for your years of services, have a nice day. We're going to replace you with an $8 an hour person. That's a value issue. Not a dollar value, but a personal value issue, okay? And it's not something that I would appreciate. And I have to say, a tentative budget is still a statement of the district's values, and I can't support a tentative budget that includes items such as that. I just can't. As the clearly oldest person on this board, I have to tell you, my husband's pension's been frozen forever, and Social Security increase this year was 1.5%. And I appreciate what the senior citizens in our town go through trying to live on that. Okay? I support education. I'm prepared to go further personally, but there are a lot of people who can't. And I think we have to be sensitive to that. I don't think that that means that we can't do certain things, but we have to do them in a way that promotes our values. And our values have to include negotiating in good faith, and it has to be supporting our employees. Yes, it has to include class size and supporting teachers, which information I would like to have. I'd like to know what our class size information is for next year. I just got this binder tonight. I haven't even looked at it. I think the budget process needs to go on. I think every committee needs to do its own thing, but I think that people who are not on the Personnel Committee and the Operations Committee and the Education Committee should have an opportunity to weigh in on this, because some of our concerns go beyond our committee lines. And I just really think that this is not ready for prime time. It's just not ready for prime time, and it doesn't speak to my values.
Thank you, Mrs. Haas. Mrs. Bogoszewski.
Well, I was going to talk, but between Mrs. Haley and Mrs. Haas,
You got everything covered?
they pretty much said everything that I was thinking and was going to say. So thank you, ladies. And I agree with them. It's bottom line.
But they're on the opposite.
One of the priorities that's embedded into this budget is full implementation of the one-to-one initiative. And I've been very supportive of the one-to-one initiative, including it in the strategic plan, supporting a diligent effort to understand what the impact is, how it would be implemented. So when we had the first, with the district paying the initial first couple classes that did it, then moving to 10%, reviewing data that were generated with regard to how the students did on there, not seeing a statistically significant difference between the groups, but still recommending and supporting expanding to the next phase, which is 20%, which we are currently in this year. My expectation, and I've expressed it before, is I really want to see what those data look like. And so I've expressed it in the Education Committee, where I confirmed that this was the #1 priority within the education realm. And then also in the Operations Committee, that moving to full implementation is of the highest priority. I don't share that. I feel that we need to continue with the diligence and actually get the data, which we won't get until summertime. And so I would respectfully suggest that we continue with the one-to-one program at the level that it's at. I understand that there are expectations in the community that we're going full bore. I'm not sure where that came from. It wasn't from me. The other aspect is with that, full implementation means that every single student, every single class, every single teacher is going to have the technology embedded in their classrooms. That's going to take a bit of planning. It's going to take a human's effort to implement, and I think time is required to put together that plan so that it can be done effectively. So with regard to that, and also with the constraints that we have, I still can't understand and don't support going to full implementation. I think we need to continue that on, and I want to make sure that input is appreciated during this budget process. I'm very supportive. I mean, right now it's a catch-22. When you are a leader, you don't have much data or benchmarks to compare yourself to. But right now, what I'm seeing is anecdote and advocacy with regard to moving to the one-to-one. And like I said, I want to see the data so that we have a more compelling argument as to why and how one-to-one technology is going to improve children's education, improve their academic performance. So that's something that I feel, and want to make sure that gets voiced as a project. Please do.
Thank you.
Tom, can I just say something?
Oh, wait, Mrs.
Sorry.
Santafanti.
No, I just wanted to say, I've said it before, I'm not sure that we're going to get the data that we're looking for in terms of the one-to-one initiative. But I do think what everyone's asking here is, what are the cost savings? What do we have to put out for park? What's the projection? Like, how many times are we going to get leases and devices? And how many different devices are we going to keep bringing in? And I think when we see those numbers, it will help impact where or how we roll it out. We still may choose to roll it out slowly, but I think it will help people better understand what we're up against financially as we try and roll it out.
The full rollout is roughly, make sure
It's
I got
like
my numbers right, it's close to
$2.5 million.
That's just for the devices.
Right.
Then you add another $1 million plus for the support staff. So it's roughly a $4 million commitment that this board would be making over the next 4 years. I don't feel that
Right, but like
is
as
appropriate
Chris
at
had
this
said,
time.
you know, what do we have to put out for park, which,
1,000.
and then what
devices.
do we actually save? Hopefully by bringing these devices into the school district, what should we
We
see
need
leave?
we need to do those analyses.
So those numbers will
Agreed.
actually, I think,
Yep.
help people understand where we're going and what to do with that as we, follow the strategic plan.
If I could.
Dr. Schiff.
I'm sorry. I would like to respond to a couple of things that you spoke about. I agree with you. I think it's very important for the board to make a decision not just based upon advocacy or anecdotal information, especially when the investment is significant, that it should be based upon a thorough analysis of what worked, what didn't work. We should do a literature review. We should have both quantitative as well as qualitative analyses completed. And I'm pleased to report that we don't have to wait till the summer in order to get that. At the next Education Committee, Mr. Handler and Dr. Antunes will be providing the final report on the Phase 3 of the one-to-one initiative, and we'll have each of those components there. I don't think it would be prudent for the board to move forward without at least that type of examination of looking at it that deeply. So we'll be able to have those discussions as we move forward and continue to talk about where in the lines of priorities the one-to-one should be.
The other part I was going to make with the one-to-one is that it's part of the 5-year strategic plan, which is 2012 to 2017. So next year's budget is one of those middle years. So as long as you end with full implementation, the speed at which you do it is up for the board to decide. Mr. Pulsifer.
I'd just like to add, going back to what Judy said about, we see what goes on in our own committees, but I'll let them, the Education Committee, have the first rights at those that report on the progress of the Phase 3. But I think it's important that all board members get to see that, because this is a big part. But I think it should go to the Education Committee first. It's their area to be responsible for in terms of our committee and vision. But I think we're talking about such a big expense and such a critical evaluation of, is it worth it? And I definitely think that's the kind of thing that the whole board needs to see as soon as you guys finish your meeting, so that we can start thinking. I mean, these are big numbers that we're talking about, and and I think all these things going on and the most recent changes in terms of ratables and everything else have kind of, at least for me, have kind of set me back a few steps from where I thought I wanted to go with this budget, because I just had not accounted for that at all. So, any information we can get with all these changes coming on us will be very helpful.
Dr. Sasan.
There's been a lot of people asking about, do we know how many more units we would need for park? And we did ask that at the last Education Committee meeting, and we were told about 1,000 to 1,500.
Yeah, we've actually done an analysis on 5 different scenarios, and we'll be presenting that at the Education Committee, and that'll be shared through the full board. So you can see how doing more on the one-to-one means doing less on park, doing less on the one-to-one means doing more on park. And you can see for yourself what those dollars look like.
Just a reminder for unfunded mandates with park, that's one of it, and we got $10 per kid that went towards park, which was
$72,000.
$72,000.
So at $10, I can get one more bead from my abacus. Is that how it works?
Okay. Any other discussion?
I can move it along.
Yeah, I just have a question on
Yeah.
process. So tonight we have to approve.
Right, so tonight,
Tentative
we are
budget.
mandated to vote on a tentative budget. We have to pass a tentative budget. That can change, and it most likely will. It has in the past when we've done that. As Dr. Schiff has mentioned, we have more time. In the past, I think it was almost just a one meeting in between. Right, so there's 6 weeks between now and when the final budget. Right, so the April 28th is the budget hearing, and then we'll have the adoption of the final budget. Each committee will meet during then. There's actually a suggestion by Mr. Chitterelli, and I'd like to pursue that if it's possible, and if the tax assessor is amenable to it, to invite the tax assessor to come in to one of the next board meetings to help us understand that issue, so that we can, I know there's some questions for that, so I think that we'll send out the invitation, and we'll see what we can get with there. So from a process perspective, we do have a motion on the table for a tentative budget at the level which has been presented. We'll have a vote on that. If it passes, then then we'll go to the process of meeting among the committees, refining, prioritizing what the values are, prioritizing where we should make the spends or cuts, and then come back to the final budget, which will be presented at the end of April. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna call a question.
Oh, you're going to do roll call?
I was going to, yes.
All right. Can I say one more comment? Do you want to?
Mr.
Well,
Gillette.
I just want to ask a question
Yeah.
before we proceed. My understanding, and it's been a while since we had a vote like this, a budget vote that was this much of an issue. My understanding is we can't leave here tonight without something.
That's
so
correct.
for people who are unhappy with this number, understand that we cannot vote no, table this, decide not to do anything. We must have a number tonight.
Right. So if
And that's what we're doing. We're setting a tentative
if this,
number.
If this motion fails, then we'll have to entertain a motion for a new number, and then C5 we'll take a recess so that Mr. Mahmood can crunch numbers to update
Oh, if we change.
5. Mr. Gillette.
I was just going to say, from listening to the comments, except for Mrs. Haley, who definitely expressed that she would not vote for a tax levy this high, it seems like from the other 8, we might be able to get consensus, maybe, am I totally not reading anybody right, consensus around this amount? I mean, if somebody is way off now, if somebody wants to add another over $1 million to the tax levy now, I would like to know.
This would require, it's full majority, so you need 5 votes to approve.
That's correct.
Okay. I'm not asking for unanimity.
It's only tentative.
What's that?
It's only tentative.
This is tentative, that's correct.
So I'm not stuck to this.
It's tentative, it's like Mrs. Haas said.
It's a statement of our values.
Right. I mean, it's certainly an expression of where we think we want to go, but we're not committed to it. If our research over the next 6 weeks finds us either some massive amount of savings, please, Dr. Schiff, or some even higher cost. This is just a statement of where we think we want to go, and we'll still have 6 weeks to figure out what we can do, positive or negative, as the other numbers come up.
That's correct. Okay. All right.
Should I just apologize now because I have to work at 11?
No, we're done.
We're going to have a roll call right now.
All right.
Roll call, please, Mr. Mahmood.
Surely. Ms. Bogoshevsky.
No.
Ms. Santafonte.
No.
Okay. Mr. Dutta.
No.
Mr. Gillette.
Yes.
Mrs. Haas.
No.
Mrs. Haley.
No.
Mr. Pulsifer.
Yes.
Ms. Wasson.
Yes.
And Mr. King.
No, it's motion fails. I'm voting no. Okay. I'll entertain a motion. I was a no. Yeah.
Well, this doesn't help because people want to go down from this, and people want to go up from this. So how does this help? I think it's now I think it's hard. I think taking the vote then now makes it harder actually to reach consensus because I think clearly some people want to go down from this number, and I think some people want to go up from this number, and that's not. And some people will take this number and then work within it to not have to privatize. I'm in the group that I don't want to do any of the privatization. These were the suggestions that we received. I think I'm trying to skirt around saying it straight out because we have to respect the professionals that work for us. But these were the suggestions we received, okay? And I think there's enough board members here that would really like the tax levy to be even lower, that to suggest it be higher is going to really throw things off.
Okay.
Can we ask, I mean, obviously, I'm willing to work within this. I absolutely agree with Judy that this, where we're cutting is not within my value system, but the number
Not
is all
mine
I'm
either.
agreeing to. But can we poll who wants to go higher and who wants to go lower so that we know
open to that.
where we are? I mean, I'm not in favor of going higher.
Neither am I.
I'm not.
Obviously, Chris, whoever voted yes is fine to stay within that number.
Well, As I was saying before, this is not our budget. This is a statement of where we want to be. It's not committing us to anything in terms of a specific number for the future. But, you know, we've heard plenty of opinions on both sides of individual issues and the tax levy in general. The bottom line is we have to come as a board to some compromise that's going to be somewhere in the middle. And when I look at this number and I look at, you know, where does a strict 2% put us? Where does going all the way to bank cap and the waiver, and where does that put us? This is somewhere in the middle, and to me, that's sort of where compromise probably ought to end up, somewhere in there. You know, it could be a little higher than this, a little lower than this when we're done. But the bottom line is, you know, we're not going to be able to do the things we want to do, which includes keeping taxes down. So I hate to sound like a cynic and a pessimist, but I almost feel like we lose on all fronts here, because we're going to hurt our tax base, and we're, you know, potentially hurting our programs because we're trying to keep the tax impact down. And so not happy with any of that, but to me this is a number somewhere in the middle, and I think that's kind of where we're going to have to end up.
So I guess it's up to the people who voted no to tell us where they want to go, because, obviously, we need 5 yeses. Even with Dana gone now, we still need 5. So
I think I made my position very clear.
We understand your position, Mrs. Haley. Okay.
What's the number we're at? Like, what percentage are we at?
We're at, in terms of tax increase, 5.4% is where we're at right now, and it's about 55% of the cap bank.
I understand the bank, because, I understand that.
Yeah.
Dr. Schiff,
Have at it. I'm like, I think we can get it lower. I just want to, I don't know that we've gone through it enough to actually figure out how to get it down yet.
I'm going to just start talking. To me, I think I started this by saying that I didn't think that privatization was very palatable to any board member. That included myself, despite what I said about who would work here if we did do it. I don't buy we're going to have these terrible strangers in our school business. I don't buy that. But I'd like to keep our employees that we do have, and no, absolutely. So I include myself in the number that would find it unpalatable. But to use some amount of privatization and to not get the computers and to still have a $200 tax increase, that's the triple whammy of crap. So, I can't vote for that. If we're going to do some privatization, we better get some computers out of it.
Did you get that, Gene?
That's the TWC for short.
That's what I can't see the go low people. You're going to replace all of the $1.3 million or this the $1 million of privatization. You're going to replace that plus find some more too. That doesn't seem
cut 10%
and not have the
from
computers too.
administration. Cut 10% from administration. Or the last 10 positions, like you suggested earlier.
Okay, this is.
But we can't do that.
Okay, so
We need to
We have to
provide a
pick-
number.
we have to
need
pick a number.
provide
Has to
number
recommend
to
that.
Dr. Hold on. We need to provide a number to Dr. Schiff
right.
to then make his recommendations.
I
with input
think it's
from us.
important that we give feedback on the areas that are important to us, and as Judy said, it's a statement of our values, but tonight, we're not voting on that. We're voting on a number. So it's important that Dr. Schiff gets our input as to how he should approach getting to the number we agree to and what areas we feel are more important than others. But we're not voting tonight on what to cut, where to cut, what to do. We're voting on a number as our tentative budget.
All right, I guess I'll get the ball rolling. I don't know if we want to make a motion. We can just talk about it. If we have, going to cap on the 13-14 levy, which is, and this discussion that we have, everything is not so much what can we do, because we can go all the way. We can go all the way to bank cap. We can max out on the healthcare waiver and go into 2% for this year or this upcoming year as well. It's what should we be doing. So the way that the budget was right now, it had, using the healthcare waiver, going to 2% cap for this upcoming year, and then it had almost 1.6 of the bank cap, which is slightly over 50% of the bank cap. So I'm just trying to float something, at least just to get a number started. If you went to half of the bank cap, that would get you a reduction of about 200,000, which I don't, you would have to roll up all the numbers on that. If you wanted to take that, leaving that at that bank cap, so that's $250,000 reduction. I don't know if that's enough for everybody, but just from a value perspective.
But the number we're at right now basically is.
I think the majority of the people who voted no want to go down.
They want to cut more.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, because I felt when we had the second presentation at the operations committee, when you came back with the 1.3 in reductions, at the end of the day, if you look at the budget, that's not cutting from spending. It's not cutting from spending. And my point when I had discussions before was that we should be cutting. We can't continue to spend. We don't have it. So we should be thinking about reshuffling programs. If we're going to talk about language,
So that's basically
maybe we get rid of the language. If we're deciding strategically to move to another thing. Those were the things that I think Mr. Dutta was probably on the same page with me as well when we were talking about cutting from spending. And none of this is attractive. Look at where we are right now. None of it's attractive, but obviously we have people that, agree with the spending part of it. And our values about outsourcing. I mean, the guys making 30 or 40 grand a year are not the ones that are killing the budget here. So that's what hits me in the heart when I look at them and they work so darn hard. Those are not the ones that are killing us with the budget, so I don't want to outsource it. Believe me, I'm holding a value that I'm, for reasons about the 2%, because I think that if you would have even asked board members at the time when we voted on the budget, that you didn't even know that there was that little asterisk at the bottom that said we could go to use bank cap. So the citizens certainly didn't know that. So that's why I'm holding firm there. Now, however we get to that number, I don't know, but
I knew that, and that's why I also voted against moving to November.
You did.
That's history. The vote,
Right.
the
It is
board
what it is.
moved, and we moved on.
I did know, and the 7% who showed up to vote, even if they all knew, it wouldn't have made a difference because it was only 7%.
I don't disagree.
All right, we don't need to rehash that. The board voted, moved, and we moved.
I mean, it is what it is. It's just it was just a statement, Mr. Postma, that's all.
Exactly.
All right,
I said against it until you saw the 7%. It's hard to stand up.
Look at the expenditures number of taxes to be raised. Okay.
The point is, if you go below what we just voted, then you're cutting. You can go wherever you want. My point is, as soon as you do that, you're cutting below what we agreed we would do.
Speaking of side chat,
Did you get what he said? Triple
whammy of crap
Yeah, if you can,
with a capital T.
Mr. Mahmood,
rhymes
if you
with
can take that, please.
C.
Just an overall statement for the board for tonight's process. In order for us to submit the budget to the county office, we would need to know an itemized breakdown of what direction the board's going in. So to say to the administration, okay, we're going to revamp the proposal, we're going to go down by 200,000 or up by 200,000, whatever the board's decision is, we would then be required to ask you, if we're not going to privatize or propose to privatize, we'd have to go back to appropriations and we'd have to get line item for line item where we're going to find $715,000.
When have we ever had to do that before?
We can't do that. We will not be able to submit to the county office tomorrow a budget if you don't tell us where in appropriations we would have to cut.
I think, and it's been a long time since we had to have this exercise, but I think it's similar to what would have happened when a budget fails and it goes to the Township Committee. The Township Committee is responsible to give us a new number, and as part of that process, they must specify exactly how they would come up with that number. It's not binding, as is whatever we propose tonight. It's not binding, but if you're going to make a change, you must specify exactly how you would make the change.
All right, I wish you had made that announcement before the vote happened, but that's okay. No, we did not.
I don't remember ever doing that before.
Well, how would we submit the budget?
You know what? We've always passed it as presented, I think.
Well, yeah.
Until the final.
Well, no. I mean,
Until the final.
The motion to approve that we have is, it's not by the line by line. I understand that the line by line is what needs to be submitted and what, but that's different than what we're seeing here on the motion.
Right, but your backup, your binders give you line by line.
I'm just saying.
Right, as long as we accepted that number, we're accepting the binder, and we don't have, that is the detail.
Yeah.
As soon as we make a change, though, I think we're responsible.
We should have had that executive session, so we could have looked through the binders, because, I mean, you know, it's a little too late.
All right.
I'm just explaining what
Yeah, no.
the process in terms of how, you know, once you go to doing that.
All right, since we can't vote on the same one, and I'm looking, what's that? There,
We can
if
ask for a revote.
we're not in a position to change the makeup, or we are, it's just going to take a long time, and we have time on our side. So, with that, I will propose, I'll have a motion, and again, I wish we'd known this earlier.
Can we motion to revote? Iman, is that
Reopen the
possible?
question?
Can you motion to revote because of a technical
Oh, I
error?
was
We didn't
gonna
know all the
change
information
it,
or something?
reduce it by $1.
You can re-vote on the same.
Can we reopen the question?
Reintroduce it. You can reintroduce the budget and say, I'd like to revote on item C4.
You can?
He's opening up.
May I also make this suggestion to the board before we get too far ahead of ourselves? This is a tentative budget. This budget can change over the next 6 weeks. We have the opportunity now to make decisions whether or not we wish to cut more or cut less as we go through the process of trimming it down.
You got 3 in the middle, 3 went higher, 3 went lower. It's like, how can you get 5? And now Dana's gone. My buddy here is gone. Now it's going to make it hard. I'm not going higher. Because Dana could have,
I don't want to cut it.
Let's all go out and play for
Shoulda, coulda, woulda.
I also would just remind the board and the public that these reductions are very difficult. Additional reductions don't make it any easier. This only becomes more difficult.
If you change C4, I think you have to change C5. So don't change C4.
Right, the general.
We can change C4.
exciting. When you're past this.
All right. We don't have a clear answer on whether we can revote, so I'll actually entertain a motion. This is a new vote. To, essentially, it's the same thing as written in there. Under the appropriations, where it says general fund, it'll be deducted by $1. And that $1 will come from transportation. Okay, so you have the information that you need.
Yep.
And we'll go from there. So I don't know if
Can you
we still got to get, so it's the same budget. So part of the issue is that because of how it needs to be submitted to the state,
Yes.
they have line item by line item. So if we wanted to say, don't put this in, don't put that in, then you're going to have to totally recreate everything, and that can't be done in a timely manner. So I'm entertaining a motion to have the same appropriations, just the general dollar minus $1, and that dollar is coming from the transportation budget line item. So that enables us to vote, pass a tentative budget, and then we can address this through.
On technical error, but all right.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
I think it shows much foresight on your part, Tom, to foresee that 0.0001 cents per gallon savings we'll get next year in our transportation budget.
All right, now we got to hope that we get 5 votes. So roll call, please.
Sure.
Mr. Mahmood.
Ms. Santafonte?
Yes.
Mr. Dutta?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Gillette?
Yes.
Mrs. Haas?
I'm not clear on what we're voting on.
It's the tentative budget. Instead of the general fund being $111,460,852, it's $111,460,851, and that dollar will be reduced from transportation.
For what purpose?
We already
Purpose
voted
of-
down the other.
To revote. So instead of actually having a revote,
like the
because we don't
opposite of
have
what you did
clarity
4
on
years
Robert's
ago.
Rules of Order, we're introducing a new motion with these numbers.
Okay, no.
Okay. Ms. Haley?
No.
Okay, Mr. Pulsifer?
Yes.
Ms. Swasan?
Yes.
Mr. Kent?
Yes.
Motion passes.
We have to change the other resolution
Now,
too.
what's that?
We have the other resolution too, right?
So C5, I'd like to entertain a motion for C5 amended as such that the board would be, the second whereas, the board would be using, on the, yeah, so 975,430 from 2012-13 and 604,073 from the 2013-14, totaling 1,579,503. Okay?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay. Roll call, please, Mr. Member.
Ms. Santafonte?
Yes.
Mr. Dutta?
Yes.
Mr. Gillette?
Yes.
Mrs. Haas?
No.
Mrs. Haley?
No.
Mr. Pulsifer?
Yes.
Ms. Swasan?
Yes.
Mr. Kent?
No.
Okay, motion passes.
Thank you. Okay. Continuing on, comments from the board, or comments from the public?
They're gonna
Okay,
wait it out.
seeing none. Any old business from the board?
Business, no.
I think we scared off the public.
Yeah. Like those guys
Uh,
nuts.
Actually, you know what, Mr. Kentz, I do have something.
Okay.
Sorry, but
Oh, I
I
have
was
something
just
too.
wondering if administration has any idea what's going on with graduation yet? Just to throw another curveball at you, Dr. Schiff, because I am a senior parent this year, and I keep hearing throughout concerns from the community. So I'm just curious, do we have a resolution yet?
Well, right now, the plan is to go off-site at the Sun Arena. We did receive the contract finally from them, and we anticipate moving as planned in that particular area.
Thank you.
Oh, can I just say one thing too? I
Unless
have
it
an old
keeps
business.
snowing.
Yes. Mr. Gillette?
Mrs. Haley and Mrs. Boguszewski and I attended the Robo-Raiders Science Fair on Saturday at different times. I think I was there very early, and the ladies came later. But it was great. I learned how Arctic mammals use their blubber to insulate themselves. I put my hand in some like lard or something and then stuck it in ice. It was cool. Yeah, nice. Yeah, I had lard hand. It was wonderful. But they do an awesome job, and the kids, 5th through 12th grade, the science fair is open for kids in 5th through 12th grade. They all had projects, and it's all completely run by the Robo-Raiders students, and it was a great time. I've attended in the past, and it was a lot of fun. So I just want to mention that we went, and it was really great. Kids did a nice job.
Other old business, as we stated multiple times, we have about 6 weeks until we have the final budget. So I invite the public to express their input. We've had some members of the community who have expressed their input on the budget since we started having specific items on the agenda for that starting in January. We had quite a bit today, and we encourage people to come out and speak and share their thoughts and values for the board so we can adequately and properly represent everybody within the community. So, thank you. Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. We are adjourned.